All right. So welcome to session 4. We're going to talk about the big picture, how we fit into the unity movement. So I freely admit I stole this diagram out of a issue of Unity magazine, which is the primary magazine that we produce aside from Daily Word, but in terms of a usual newsy magazine, that's it. So what we have here, as you can see, is the circles. So we have the congregations on the outside, so we would be part of the congregations. Then we have the ministries, and there's a division between the congregations and the ministries because in some ministries there are 2 congregations or more. For a long time there, we had 2 services, one at 9 o'clock and one at 11 o'clock. And it was very rare that there was any crossover between the 2 congregations. They were very different congregations. And that's not to blame, shame, or make any comments like that, but just to say, sometimes churches have more than one congregation. I'm thinking of York Region. In a way, they have a congregation on Sunday, and then they have another congregation for the Thursday classes. And I suspect that when they had the Tuesday meditations held live, that they might have attracted a third congregation there. Now we're seeing, our congregation of people who maybe not ever step inside our doors, but who are watching services or events on YouTube, on Facebook, through Zoom, through other channels. So that's why we have that linkage outside there. Then we get into regions. I'll discuss that a bit more in a couple slides. And then we have 2 parallel and co-equal organizations, Unity Worldwide Ministries and Unity World Headquarters at Unity Village. They're actually in a process of really amalgamating the 2, at least in how they staff the positions. For a while, those 2 things were separate, actually separated by a number of miles on 2 different locales. And recently they came back together at headquarters on grounds. And so it's been a process of figuring out how do we do this when we have duplication of services, where we might have something that overlaps a bit too much, that it's not really worth having one person doing. It might be divided amongst a number of people rather than having one specific person. So what we're going to talk about are all of these structures, how we as people in Unity fit into the big picture. So we're going to start with Canada because we're Canadian, that's where we are. This is the current list of all the ministries in Canada. Of course, Unity Vancouver Island being the amalgamation of 3 previous ministries. There were 2 study groups which have closed in the last couple of years because of the COVID, and there's some movement around though. I'm finding it very interesting to see, because of our capacity for online interaction. We're seeing Ottawa, Windsor, and Kitchener, which in terms of travel time, Windsor to Ottawa by train, I think is 4 hours, give or take. It's a significant drive. It's a really pretty drive, but it's a significant drive from one to the other. Kitchener kind of falls halfway between the 2. So people that wouldn't otherwise be able to get together on a regular basis without significant time and travel are now being able to get together. And of course, we've got this group. We've got Verna out in New Brunswick, and we've got the folks out on Vancouver Island, and then those of us in the middle. So for us, it's been an interesting experience. You probably know that I'm the licensed Unity teacher rep for Canada, and a colleague of mine just became the rep for the Northwest of the US. And I was teasing her that I might have more time zones, but she had more LUTs to oversee. So we sort of joke about, time zones and how much distance we have. So it's an interesting thing. It wasn't always this way. It used to be north-south. So I actually would go to the Great Lakes and hang out with people from Indiana and Michigan and Illinois and Ohio. But it was decided Canada should be its own organization. So there's our beautiful logo. Here is Unity Canada's vision and mission and values. A world powerfully transformed through the growing movement of shared spiritual awakening. That may sound familiar. It's used by a number of the ministries. not only in Canada, but elsewhere. It's kind of common phrasing of the idea that we are awakening together rather than it being a very individualized uh, activity. Our mission as Unity Canada is to serve and equip our members through education support, ministry development, and opportunities for connection. As I mentioned in the prayer, the Unity Canada Board is meeting this week, and they will be discussing what to do next year. At the convention or conference, we were asked if we were interested in getting together more than just once a year. And I suspect, I haven't seen it, but I suspect that there probably will be an opportunity for us to meet together across Canada without it being a class, but rather just being a let's get together. Our values are generosity, creativity, and inclusivity. So our website, nice and easy, unitycanada.org. That lands you at a page that looks like this. It's actually been revised. I think it's a little clearer than it was before. We're still tweaking it. I haven't done the education section yet. This is actually just a screen grab. Would you like me to show you parts of it, or are you all techie enough that you can go exploring on your own? Okay, I see Richard nodding. Verna, I think you're familiar with this. Okay, Angelica, I'm hoping you're good with this. So we have these spots where we're putting information, we're expanding our information. We're realizing that because we are so large a community, because we have such, until we get Labrador and Newfoundland and Labrador on, we only have 5 time zones. As soon as we get ministries there, we'll have 6, which really, it's fun to plan, but it does create some challenges, and having a website where we can communicate with each other is great. So that's your go-to. The other go-to is unity.org. Again, fairly simple name. Again, this is a screen grab. Draw your attention here. We've talked about prayer in the past. That's where you go for your prayer resources. Under resources, that is things like your booklets, the themes for the year, past themes that you can go back and pull artwork out of or inspirational pieces from, a whole bunch of things. You have publications, which is paid items, for sale, and freebies that you can download. Education will take you to another page. Then we have Unity Near You, which is in the process of being updated. And then there's a link to the other half, which is Unity Worldwide Ministries. So back in the day, I think it was 1966, Unity Worldwide Ministries sort of broke off from the rest of Unity, and they took care of the ministers and the ministries. That was their focus. And then what was left on campus was the education, the publishing, and prayer. So as you can see, I mean, it's great that they're all under one roof again, but you can see how there might be some overlap in duties and responsibilities. So the Unity Worldwide Ministries, as I said, that's really the organization that we care about. The part that we come under is called Membership Services, which is responsible for all the ministries outside of the US Bay. So their mission, and values, the vision is the same as Unity Canada's. Guess who we stole it from? A world powerfully transformed through the growing movement of shared spiritual awakening. And then the mission is advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. And the purpose is to develop, equip, and support Unity leaders and communities to grow in innovative, sustainable, and cutting-edge ways. Now, having said that, I'm aware that there are a lot of changes happening at the headquarters right now in pretty well every area that they can touch. Education is being reviewed. It's under a 5-year review. There have been some changes in staffing already, and some realignments of how things are going to be worked out. So anything I say tonight might not be true next year, just because the changes are coming fast and furious. The tradition for Unity Worldwide Ministries is that they have 2 events a year. They have convention, usually in June, and then they have what they call mid-year or summit, which is in January. That tends to be for leadership personnel only, staff and leadership personnel. I have not actually attended one. I may be called to this one because I am currently sitting on 2 education teams, and our input has been requested, and I've been busy writing reports and on Zoom with my fellow teammates, putting our 2 cents from the field about where we think the education part of Unity needs to go to meet the needs, not only of our pulpits, but just of the world generally, of getting the message that we have out to the rest of the world. So the values of UWM, I'm going to use the short form because it's long. Spirit-led. We are centered in God. Spirit leads our thoughts and actions as we co-create a world that works for all. Generosity. Living in the infinite flow of God's good, we draw from God's inexhaustible supply and wisely use our rich resources to serve the world. Transformation. We are a dynamic movement on the cutting edge of spiritual evolution. We teach universal spiritual principles that change lives. Diversity. We believe that all people are created with sacred worth. We promote greater understanding among people in a spirit of unity. Integrity. We act from a place of wholeness and are ethical in all our actions. We keep our word. Unity. Loving, collaborative, respectful. I believe even these statements are under review. So when you go to the website, you might see something different. One of the things I love about Unity is we're not stuck in a particular wording that worked, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, millennia ago, however long ago, which I've always appreciated, that even in the 30 or so years I've been in Unity, how we've languaged things has changed. I can tell you how it's different between when I came in and how it sounds now. Underlying principle, the same. We just are using language a bit differently now. So I mentioned early on about the idea of our regions. So up here we have Canada, we have Eastern in the blue, Southeast, which encompasses 2 time zones. Great Lakes, you can see it's quite an extensive area. South Central, I'm not sure how, I guess North Dakota and South Dakota probably don't have a lot of ministries, if memory serves. But you can see, with Texas, Unity's pretty big in Texas and Oklahoma. And then, of course, we go here to Missouri, where headquarters is. It's right about there, I think. Southwest has part of California, part of Nevada, Utah, and Arizona. West Coast, Nevada, and California. Northwest, my dear friend Audrey is the lead rep there. So she gets Alaska and then these states. And then we have the Pacific area, which includes Hawaii, the Philippines, New Zealand, Australia, and Chile. So as you can see, we have quite a few organizations and how we get ourselves aligned. So these are the ones that are basically in play for us as Canadians. The UK, we could potentially take classes with them. We could potentially call their silent unity. We'd be able to communicate with each other because we're all speaking English. But with the time change, it's a little difficult. And then we have other areas, Germany. We went through all the places that had a silent unity when we did the prayers last month, I think it was. Sorry, things are getting a little confused because I've got so many things going. I feel like a juggling artist, and yeah, it's wonderful though. So you can see how in some ways it kind of made sense, for Canadian churches in the Great Lakes area to participate with the Great Lakes group. So it was, I believe, 2002 that we were split off and made into our own region with our own duties and responsibilities. So it's great. And in ways, this has been the blessing of COVID, is that we've struggled to connect Canada. We tried having our own school back in 2002, and it really didn't work because it involved travel. We didn't have a way like this. We could have done it by phone, but let's face it, learning by phone doesn't really work. So that's an overview of the way that we structure that in the world. So recalling this, so when we get to our regions, that's Unity Canada. And then when we get to these two, that splits, we've got Unity World Headquarters at Unity Village, Silent Unity, and Unity Online Radio, Unity Village, which includes everything to do with retreats, conventions, renting space to other organizations. That's been a really big thing because the space isn't being used the way it used to be. And I'll talk about that in a moment. Worldwide Ministries, which oversees Worldwide Spiritual Institute, which is the education branch. So back in the day when I went through school in the late 90s, I graduated in 2000, ministers lived on campus for 2 years at a time. And so that changed they go down perhaps, I think it's quarterly. They haven't been able to because of COVID. We actually just graduated our first class of completely online LUTs. And, it's been a process of figuring out how to do the things and what to do with all the space that was there. Some of the material. Hello, Peter, welcome. We're recording, so you can catch up as available.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that's happened is they have all of these buildings, some of which are historical, so they can't be, renovated too much. Some are not, so they've been able to repurpose them or take them down and reuse the land. One of the things that I love that they've done is they've reclaimed our heritage of having orchards and growing crops. And they actually have a nice vegetable stand, and there's places on grounds where you can buy produce. And so that was very much of our heritage in the early years. So it's nice to see a return to that connection with the land as well as, the spirit. All right. That I am opening up to questions because the first time I did this, I went into a lot more detail because we had all these organizational charts. And I asked someone at the headquarters, what does the organizational chart look like now? And paraphrasing, it was basically a damned if I know who I report to, but things are in such change, and I don't want to affirm chaos, but just figuring out what the best way is to work things now that we know that being online is not going away. It's not optional anymore. It really is part of who we are as a community and how we're getting our message across. Now that said, in some ways, I can feel Charles Fillmore just beaming down on us because he was the first one to use radio. He was the first one to use telephone for prayer. They got this idea. His granddaughter had the idea for the reading the Daily Word on television and then doing short PSAs on television, long before others have thought of it. So it really feels like a very natural progression of how things have been done. And we're relearning how best to convey our message to the world in ways that attract a wide band of not only age groups, ethnicities, culture, uh, gender preference, gender identity, the whole gamut. Uh, I don't want to go back to the days where, you had Black unity churches and gay unity churches and the other unity churches. I don't want to go back to that. I want to, be as inclusive